join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prisons?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned.
I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton Tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Hello, welcome back. I'm Bethany Elsey, here to bring you up to date from the GB Newsroom. The Health Secretary says he's open to talks with the Nurses' Union ahead of strike action this week, but suggested the government will not budge on pay. The RCN has threatened further industrial action in the new year if ministers don't respond within 48 hours of Tuesday's walkout. Steve Barclay also said it's up to the union to ensure there's sufficient cover in place for emergencies during the industrial action, warning patient safety would be affected if striking staff chose to only answer calls from the picket line.
It's important that the trade unions honour the commitments that they've given to safeguard both life-threatening responses and emergency responses. Now, we haven't actually had that confirmed in the practical arrangements that the trade unions put in place with each trust. I'm calling on them to do so. I'm very keen to continue talking with them because all of us should be focused on that patient safety.
A Cabinet Minister says it's not fair that military personnel are having to cover for public sector workers on strike over the festive period. Oliver Dowden is urging unions to call off the industrial action, warning significant pay rises would end up making everyone poorer. More than 1,000 troops are expected to cover paramedics and Border Force officials. A teenager has been charged with facilitating attempted illegal entry to the UK after 4 people died while trying to cross the English Channel. 39 people were rescued when a migrant boat capsized earlier this week. 19-year-old Ibrahima Bar of no fixed address has been remanded in custody and will appear at Folkestone Magistrates Court tomorrow. Police searching a property in Birmingham say they've found what is believed to be the remains of a child. West Midlands Police have been searching the garden of a house in Handsworth following information about a possible burial. A post-mortem examination will be carried out to establish the cause of death. And Argentina have won the Qatar World Cup after beating France in a thrilling match which saw extra time and a penalty shootout. Fans Fans in Argentina celebrated their captain, Lionel Messi, who has finally won the biggest prize in football. Messi scored twice in a 3-3 draw that featured a hat-trick for France's Kylian Mbappe. The game ended in a shootout where Argentina's keeper saved one, while another shot from France went wide. Many are already considering the match to be one of the greatest in World Cup history. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. This is GB News. Now it's time for Headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Leo Kearse and I'll be taking you through Monday's top stories. Joining me are two top comedians in the form of Kerry Marks and Francis Foster. Anyway, first, let's take a quick look through tomorrow's front pages. The Daily Mail has outrage at Neville's World Cup rant over UK strikes. We'll be digging into that later. The Eye has delayed 999 call response times are costing lives, warn paramedics. The Guardian says workers who made jeans for Tesco trapped in effective forced labour. The Financial Times says COVID's rapid advance in China's cities sparks disruption and staff shortages. You'd think the country that invented it would be able to deal with it. Anyway, the Mirror has cold-hearted Tories putting lives at risk. The Times has airport strikes to wreak havoc. And finally, the Daily Star with move rover, Fido, nice little pun there, hot dogs overheat under the covers. And those were your front pages. Let's start with the front page of the Mirror, Kerry.
Strikes, 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 everything strikes, the whole country's falling apart. Cold-hearted Tories putting lives at risk. This is Unite boss Sharon Graham, who's told the Mirror that Steve Barclay will carry the can for any deaths during the nurses' strike due to his refusal to open pay negotiations. So that's quite strong words there. On the other side of it, we have Oliver Dowden, who's the Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, who has said the UK government will remain resolute, so nothing's going to happen there. So what we're getting is an impasse where we could really do with a bypass to get around this. And we're seeing lots of strikes going on because strikes do tend to happen at the same time. That you can't do one at a time because there's a diminishing returns. You know, if the first strike action gets what they want, then there's less money for the next group and so on. So you tend to see this all sort of clamour together and the whole country falls apart. Yeah. And I don't know. I think there's probably different sympathies with different groups, and for me, it's like the train drivers who. There's the cleaners on the trains, you know, and I think they get very low wages.
Well, but they don't do a great job. I've never seen a train toilet that I'm like, wow, this has been cleaned amazingly well.
I have seen one.
Really?
I'm sure. Yeah, they're not tempting, are they? They're not. I mean,
I'm never like, well, I'm going to hold this on until I get to the train.
Let's be fair. Train toilets are used by people wobbling. You know, it's not. They're not going to be that wonderful. But on the other hand, the nurses, you know, the nurses clean up other people's. They take bedpans and they take so much abuse that I kind of feel so much more affection for their. You know, with train drivers, what are they? I think they should get paid more, maybe. You know, but at the same time, they're getting paid more than the national average. Yeah. And have you ever heard sat-nav for train drivers? It just goes in half a mile, follow the track. In half a mile, keep following the track. Yeah. It's not difficult.
It's not the hardest job.
I know someone's going to write to me going, it's very, very difficult, Kerry, you've got no idea.
Well,
but
they say...
I'm reckoning I could do it.
They say it's because you've got to deal with the trauma of running people over. But for some people, that would be a perk. You just need to hire more sociopaths. Yeah. I mean, Francis, do you think the nurses are maybe, and the government are playing chicken with each other to see who bends first?
Well, this is it. I think what the Royal College of Nursing wants a 19% pay rise, which I do believe is unrealistic. The government have come out with, I think it's something like 4.9%. What we desperately need is for the government to sit down with the unions and for both sides to actually come together and wish there to be some kind of solution, because at the moment, all we're getting from both sides is empty rhetoric. And what happens when you have both sides unwilling to have a productive discussion is you have chaos for ordinary people. Well, not me, mate, because I'm a celebrity, but ordinary people out there.
I mean, well, what am I working with? I'd like to see how you classify celebrity. This is another Cambridge Dictionary reclassification of a word. But I mean, I think the government. Do you think there's some risk that the government's playing hardball because they know that it sort of damages Labour, because Labour are obviously connected to the unions. They get a lot of funding from the unions. It makes Labour look bad if people, if grannies start dying because of their nurses' strike.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think they should play them against each other. Give the nurses 25% and then tell the train drivers, sorry, we gave it to the nurses. and fight it out.
Yeah, and maybe fire out some of the people in all these ridiculous non-jobs, like the quality, diversity and inclusion officers are on 100 grand. Why are they getting that money when that could go to nurses? Fire them, give it to the nurses. Anyway, turning to the Daily Mail now, Francis, what have you got for us?
So we have got the agony and the ecstasy, which is, of course, talking about today's World Cup final, which is one of the greatest games in the history of the World Cup. Absolutely brilliant. It was 3-3, and Argentina won it on penalties. A lot of people supporting Argentina, particularly in England, pretending to be Argentine or supporting Argentina. And you might not know this, but Argentina in Latin America, they're not very popular. In fact, they're so hated, yeah. They're actually known as the English of South America.
Really?
Yeah, that's how hated they are. No one likes them. Like, my mum's Venezuelan, so in Venezuela, people will go and watch Brazil, they'll go and watch Colombia, they'll support them. The moment Argentina's playing, they'll support the other team. So there we go.
Right, that's interesting. And it must be a tough, I mean, as a Scotsman, it was tough for me to decide who to support. But it's going to be the same for an English person, because, I mean, obviously there's enmity between England and Argentina and England and France.
I thought it was a stunning game of nail-biting intensity with an electrifying penalty shootout, such dramatic talent. I don't know what
Are you reading this? Are you just reading that, mate?
OK, I didn't watch it. But, I'll have a look at the highlights. I mean, you made it sound exciting, so I believe you.
But the Mail also goes with outrage at Neville's World Cup rant over UK strikes. And this is a pundit, Gary Neville, former Manchester United captain, who was known by his teammates as Red Nev. So he took a little pop at the government and at the strikes and was comparing migrant workers in Qatar with the strikes in the UK, which, even for me, is a little bit of a leap. Do you know what I mean?
Are the migrant workers in Qatar, are they on 80 grand a year, like the train drivers? And do they get pensions and holidays and all the rest of it? I'm guessing not.
No, exactly.
He's allowed to exaggerate, though, isn't he? And I think, Qatar put on an amazing game, an amazing tournament with, the stadium alone cost about, I believe, it was about 1 million migrant workers. Well done them.
Yeah, and quite a lot of them. I think 6,500 actually died.
That's right. Yeah,
constructing, which is an insane number. Considering
that's what the cost was.
People are so outraged by deaths of slaves and mistreatment of slaves 400 years ago. It's amazing that they're not more upset about the actual slavery that's happening right now that they could do something about.
Well, it's still going on.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Well, that is a good point, but then you don't get to look good, and then you don't get to take Qatari money. And let's be fair, they've got a lot of it, so...
Yeah, and they've been splashing it around the European Union, which we're going to be covering later on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on to the Times, and what are they leading with, Kerry?
We have the airport strikes. More strikes. Warned you at the beginning of the show. Lots of strikes. Basically, we're seeing under contingency plans being drawn up, passengers will be held on aircraft to prevent overcrowding in airports, airport arrival halls during these strikes. So basically, you're not going to get here. If you get here, you won't be able to get from the airport. If you have an accident on the way, don't bother going to a hospital. And that's the state of play at the moment. You've actually got a better chance now getting into the country with a people smuggler in a dinghy.
yeah, which is actually substantially more expensive than flying Ryanair, I've noticed. But so the flights are still going to go ahead. They're just there's going to be delays because are they bringing military or something like that to actually do the passport checking and things like that?
Do you know this? I think...
well, they are talking about...
covering everything, aren't they?
Well, they're actually talking about the bringing the military in because from the 23rd, I believe, what we're going to see is widespread chaos. And, of course, the unions have timed it, so that is when everybody goes away. And it's got to come to a point. We can't just have union after union after union striking, because our economy is already on the brink after the disastrous policy that was locked down, where we had furlough, we printed money, which then meant we've got runaway inflation. Unless something is done, you do wonder that we're actually going to go back to 1974.
Yeah. We've actually got driving examiners on a walkout as well, which is kind of surprising. I thought they'd have a drive out, really.
Driving examiners?
It's not much of a threat, really, is it?
I mean, the country's not going to grind to a halt with driving examiners.
Right now, we're quite happy with fewer drivers.
Yeah, in fact, if some 16-year-olds don't get their licence, that's fewer bad drivers on the road. Things are going to move smoother.
Totally, but it's a bit of a shame if you can't get a train and you also can't learn to drive. So this is catching everybody from every angle.
Anyway, let's look at the front page of The Guardian, France.
So The Guardian have obviously gone with the World Cup and Messi again. However, The Guardian have been doing some very good investigative journalism. I think it was...
Marry The Guardian.
Yeah, I know. I'm actually quite surprised. I've been very critical of The Guardian, but they did an excellent expose of Michelle Mone, the Tory peer. And now they've been investigating Tesco, who have been using effective forced labour. And this is Tesco, who have got factories out in Burma, and they have been essentially trapping these workers, making them work for as little as £3 a day from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m, sometimes making them work through the night. And The Guardian have done an expose on this. Good on The Guardian, because this type of thing is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, but £3 a day, I mean, you could get 2 pairs of jeans at Tesco for that. So it's not that small an amount of money.
Well, Gary Neville has said it's as bad as the driving quitting. I think the main thing that got me from this story was realising that people buy clothes from Tesco.
Yeah.
I had no idea at all that
well,
they go and buy their jeans there.
Let's admit who it is. It's just beating down dads who've given up on life, really, isn't it?
And I thought the paper you would actually have some experience in that.
Yeah. I do think
that Tesco or just stuff you find in a hedge. I start looking at the pair of you.
We do have to get off our high horses, though. We have a right to criticise other countries, but really, this is going on a lot with how our high street shops making the fast buck and huge profits, taking advantage of people in other countries, which it shouldn't be necessary.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought you were going to defend Tesco's then.
I was not for a moment.
Oh, OK.
What on earth made you think that?
I'll defend Tesco. I think a lot of these jobs, they seem harsh by Western standards, but people choose to take these jobs, and people are moving from a subsistence, agrarian, rural lifestyle where people are dying, you're starving, you're not getting enough protein and stuff. Moving to cities, getting these jobs where it might look like they're not getting paid very much, but they're not in central London, so that £3 a day goes a bit further. I'm not saying it's...
But it's about our morality, though, isn't it?
It's context.
OK.
Our morality.
Geez, what are you going to go and tell them? Sorry, but it's context.
If my shopping...
Here's your £4 for a day's work, and here's some context for you.
Yeah, well, I used to get £3.50 an hour to work in a night shift in a petrol station, which, somebody now would be, oh my God, that's so cool, but it's like Scotland in the 90s.
Yeah, that was the 90s, wasn't it?
To be honest with you, I'd prefer to be in Burma, mate, in a sweatshop.
Yeah, so would I. Anyway, finally, what are our friends at the Daily Star saying here?
The Daily Star's got all dog front page here. It's the free Great British Bark Off is a week of Christmas fun and recipes for your dog. Just to add to their punning, they've made a dog's dinner of the front page, basically. And they suggest move Rover Fido. I believe the story is saying don't put your dog in the bed under the duvet. Really, you should sleep under your dog. The dog is a duvet. That's the point of a dog, surely.
Yeah. Are people doing that to stay warm from the dog, using the dog as a sort of hot water bottle?
No, I think it's concern for the dog, and we keep the dog under the bed and or in the bed with us and whatever else they get up to, which they shouldn't be doing either, really.
No, it's true. I mean, it's always great that the Daily Star goes with the most important story of the day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The countries are sliding off the face of a cliff. No one wants to work anymore. 1 in 10 young people say they don't want to work. Inflation's through the roof. But let's talk about dogs on a pillow.
Yeah. Well, dogs die in hotbeds. Anyway, with the front pages out of the way, join us in part 2, where we have the reality of our military's homes, whether the EU are going to cut off gas or not. Well, that's Qatar cutting off the gas to the EU, and the latest Christmas deals for migrants being smuggled across the channel. See you there.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates.
Do you not believe in prison? I don't believe in prison.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. for Gloria Meets. In exclusive interviews, I'll be finding out who our politicians really are and what they really think.
It's something that you would never want anyone to suffer.
I didn't know what channels there were. B, I didn't think I'd be believed.
I must have weighed about 7 stone and I'm 5'8".
My instincts was to sort of cover this up. I mean, clearly that was a mistake.
Join me every Sunday at 6 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm still Leo Kearse, and they're still Katie Marks and Francis Foster. Anyway, to Monday's Guardian now, and the government is refusing to administer an injection of cash to nurses, Francis. I know we covered this a bit before.
We did indeed, Leo, but it's a huge story, so I see no problem covering it again. UK government will stay resolute on nurses' pay, says Oliver Dowden. The minister defends a refusal to override pay offer, despite threat of further industrial action. Dowden has obviously said they will remain resolute on pay. The government are digging their heels in. However, the Royal College of Nursing says that there will be more hospitals and more nurses taking part in strikes at present, not only now, but throughout January. And Matthew Taylor, the head of the NHS Confederation, has echoed the point that I made, that we need to get both parties around the table and we need to discuss this and we need to come to some resolution. Because the issue is with this particular strike, as opposed to strikes by, for instance, Ofsted, which no one cares about, or other strikes.
The driving instructors.
Or the driving instructors. This puts people's lives at risk. And the more strikes that happen, the more lives will be put at risk and people will die as a result of this. So it is vitally important for both sides to come to the table. I personally feel 19% for a pay rise is unrealistic. The Royal College of Nursing needs to be realistic in their demands, and the government needs to be willing to up the nurses' pay. Because if we don't do this, then people are going to die. It's incredibly worrying.
Yep.
I'm glad you said pay. I thought you were going to say they should up the nurses, which that's not a very nice message, really. But, yeah, I mean, you know, I've already said how I feel about this, and I refer you to the comments I gave earlier. But I'm leaning now. I'm much more for the driving instructors. But seriously, because the problem is that there's an advantage to all the people in the fields with unions, and I know a lot of people in this country now are in the gig economy.
Yeah.
And they don't have a union, and they don't really have anything to threaten the country with.
Yeah.
And in a sense where the unions still have this power, it kind of takes away from the gig economy stance. And really what we need is a better system that raises pay for everybody fairly.
Yeah. Although if we raise pay for everybody, we get into this
well, just me,
wage price spiral.
Yeah.
Yeah, before you know it, we're in the Weimar Republic. Anyway, our soldiers have gone from dodging bullets to dodging frostbite and mold spores. This is in the Daily Mail, Kieran.
How our heroes are being left to freeze in squalor. Members of armed forces and their families are issued sleeping bags, and they're sleeping in their coats as they're left in mould-ridden military homes without heating for weeks. This has been under the private contract of a company called Pinnacle, whose boss he earns $320,000 a year, and his name is Peregrine Lloyd, which does sound like someone who's doing pretty well.
That's a rich guy's name.
Yeah. It sounds like someone who's born doing pretty well. No, it doesn't sound like someone who achieved well at some point, does it?
Yeah.
You're born Peregrine Lloyd. You did okay.
You're very confident, your child. I mean, if he went to a state school with a name like Peregrine, he would get punched in the face repeatedly.
And he would know he deserves it. Yeah. £2 million stately home that he has, but which I don't know whether that really is relevant or not, but people have been saying, well, why don't you put some of them up? And he has replied that he can't take all of them in. He has a big family of his own staying for Christmas. And it's against the terms of the contract, and he doesn't really like them that much anyway, and they wouldn't like his wallpaper, and every excuse he can possibly come up with. What he has done is created a helpline for them, but the helpline is full of cold reactions, full of mould, and no one's getting through on that, and when they do, they don't get really much. That's what helplines are, though, aren't they? It really just puts people off from their complaints for a while and keeps them on a waiting list for an extra hour on the phone.
Yeah, Francis, is this an issue with private contractors? So they paid Pinnacle, millions, tens of millions to provide housing for just under 50,000 soldiers and their families, and they haven't delivered. They've a lot of the accommodation is subpar, and they're being slow to respond while they're creaming off the profits.
I mean, look. It's tragic, really, because you look at these people, our armed forces. These are people who put their body on the line for their country, who go out and serve. When they come back, we should look after them. It is shocking, the percentage of homeless people who are ex-service, ex-military, and we don't seem to care about these people. We don't pay them particularly well. They do one of the hardest jobs in society. They come back. Not only do some of them, unfortunately, have physical damage, but they also have damage to their mental health, PTSD. We need to do more to support our armed forces and, in particular, our veterans. So I think it's awful.
And it seems unfair when they could just go down to the beach in Dover and say they've just got off a dinghy and get put up in a 4-star hotel.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one option. Anyway, talking of that, the Mirror now and Boxing Day sales have started early for people looking to cross the channel pretending to be an asylum seeker, Francis.
Well, this is it. Smugglers are offering migrants £435 Christmas deal to cross the channel in overcrowded boats. And what is basically happening here is people smugglers are dangerously overloading boats in the channel. They're offering migrant crossings for less than £500 as billed as a cut-price Christmas deal. I'm not sure Jesus would approve of it. And what they do is they get these big dinghies, they pile people on, and they just tell them that they're going to set sail and they're going to get to the UK on the other side. And unfortunately, because they're so dangerously overcrowded and they don't have safety checks and everything like this, unfortunately, some of them don't make it and they die in the freezing waters of the English Channel.
Tragic incident this week. 4 people died, and it could have been far more if a fishing boat hadn't been there to save them.
Yeah, absolutely. And he should be done for manslaughter, really, the guy who was smuggling them.
Yeah.
I think there should be responsibility for that. But 435, so it's a Christmas deal being offered, which that's not what Christmas is about, is it? It's supposed to be more expensive, for one thing. And it's the January sales where you put on the deals. Yeah. So they're already not respecting our culture with the way they're coming in. I don't really understand why we're not able to spot these boats. I mean, we're able to spot meteorites from light years away now, but we can't spot a boat coming across the channel. And of course, there is the argument over what we do to put people off, and what is actually a deterrent. And on the far right, we've got people with ideas. Well, let's buy in loads of sharks, put them in the sea, electrify the waters. Or what we could do is send our extreme left wing over to their countries to tell them just how awful our country is and put them off coming here. But I don't think we've got any real answers. No. Stopping the dealing with the asylum backlog faster, perhaps.
Well,
but
Australia managed to solve their problem with small boat migrants, illegal migrants, by just saying if you arrive here illegally, you revoke any chance of ever being able to stay here.
But you see, there is a massive flaw to your argument, Leo, because Australia have a competent government. We don't have that in this country. We have a government which proposes ridiculous ideas like the Rwanda plan. Do you remember
that would have been a great idea if it had been allowed to work.
No, but here's the thing. You know what would have been more believable? If Priti Patel had come out and say, oh, yeah, we're going to deport you to Narnia. If I'd seen like a giant fawn escort Albanians out the door. It was never going to happen. It was never going to work. We have a government that are not fit for purpose. The reality is we need an asylum system and we need an immigration system that works. And if people come here illegally, everybody understands that it is illegal. You are breaking the law, and that means that, unfortunately, you cannot have access to this country.
Yeah.
I don't see what's so difficult
But that
about
message isn't reaching them, though, is it?
No.
I mean, they're being told a different thing by the people smugglers who are obviously saying there's a good chance of you getting in. So the question is, why isn't that message reaching into...
Why the message isn't reaching because the reality is, at the moment, if you set foot on British soil, that's it. You're here, you're fine, you can game the asylum system, we'll give you a lawyer to help you get through the nooks and crannies of the asylum system. So yeah, you're here. Until that stops, they're going to continue with these dangerous crossings. And everyone, I see all these left-wing commentators saying, oh, we shouldn't stop the boats crossing. They're responsible. They're pretty much directly responsible for the deaths of these people crossing the channels. It's ridiculous.
Of course it is, because, you know, the thing that no one wants to admit about this, that we've got, you know, the narrative on the left, which, you know, these people are fleeing war and persecution, and, of course, some of them are.
Well, they're fleeing France.
Yeah, exactly. Have you been to France? But the point is, this is all being run by organised crime.
Yeah.
This is all going in the pockets of gangsters, and more people are going to die as a result because more and more people are going to cross the channel.
Yeah.
So we need to do something about it. That is the humanitarian thing to do.
Absolutely. Anyway, talking of organised crime, The Telegraph reveals how the fallout from the European Parliament corruption scandal might mean that our gas gets cut off, Kieran.
The European Parliament ban will negatively affect energy discussions, warns gas-rich Doha. So, yeah, this is... Qatar has warned that discussions on energy cooperation will be negatively affected by its ban from the European Parliament amid the bribery scandal that we've seen this week, which has been extraordinary because these kind of deals going on backroom. These are backroom deals happening with lobbyists all the time.
Yeah.
In all these meetings, and it's rare that something comes out like this, and it's also rare that we have a threat made by Doha in this way, by Qatar, saying this can affect your energy consumption and our deals with you.
Yeah.
Because normally that's always happening as well, but that's backroom. So everything's happening quite interesting out in the open. Qatar, of course, is one of the richest countries in the world, so they're certainly in a position to carry out a threat like that. I'm surprised, really, with what they were paying for anyway. I'm surprised Qatar didn't prepare more for this World Cup and know what kind of focus they were going to get.
Yeah.
And know what the conversation was going to be.
They were paying European politicians, EU politicians, to improve their reputation, to say nice things about Qatar effectively.
Yeah, yes.
Which they should have just paid us. We would have done that.
Yeah, we would have done that, and for significantly less money, and dare I say it, more effectively. So listen, Qatar, if you're listening, I'm willing to be bought, all right? Just find me on Twitter and buy me.
I'm cheaper.
Yeah.
We need a union to keep the wages high. Anyway, Monday's Express says we should worry about Xi Jinping, the Chinese premier, cutting off our supplies of tat made in China, Francis.
Yes, so China should be recognised official threat by Britain, demands new report. And this is all about the rising power of China. The threat that it poses not only to the West but also to Taiwan, with 90% of all advanced semiconductors are being made. And look, the reality is that we have been dependent on cheap Chinese produce for a long time. That's how, you know, we get all our things, a lot of our products have been built over there, and we have been relying on it. However, as relations between us and the Chinese have frosted over, as China, particularly during COVID, have become ever more authoritarian, we need to be realistic about our relations with China and realise they are not good actors in the global game, unfortunately.
And by actors, you don't mean they'd be terrible in EastEnders. You mean they're actually quite...
I mean, they probably would be terrible in EastEnders. but yes, but we need to realise, you know, the CCP, the Chinese people, of course, decent people, but the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party...
the car parks there.
Exactly. The Chinese Communist Party are not good actors, and they want to increase their power, increase their wealth.
There was theories decades ago that the world would become a safer place the more connected and reliant it becomes. Right? That you need oil from here, you need superconductors from there, you need everyone supplying everything, and we're all doing our part, and it would make it harder for there to be wars. What we're seeing right now is a lot of movement with the power structures going on around the world. China, of course, is also investing in lots of countries and creating debts that that then it can exploit.
Basically bondage, creating bondage in Africa.
It's sort of, that is what's going on, So we've got you know, oil from Russia and gas and so on with China and of course Middle Eastern oil and everything's just relying on everything else, and it's becoming very complicated. And we need to become more self-reliant.
Yeah, and they're using it as threats. They're weaponising. You know, Russia's weaponised its energy. China's weaponising its plastic trinkets.
But also, we've sat back on a lot of this. We've seen from Putin him taking liberties with Crimea a while ago, and he even had spies come into our country and commit what is a war crime, murdering people on our soil, and we did nothing about it. And partly we are to blame for everything that's going on right now, because we've said, look, we're just going to let you get away with stuff.
Yeah, we give him a false sense of security that made him think he could invade Ukraine. Anyway, that concludes part 2. Part 3 is where John Bishop isn't a fan of Jeremy Clarkson's recent jokes, Sunak is joining the anti-Meghan and Harry conversation, and the infamous trans teacher with the big boobs returns. Anyway, see you in a couple of minutes. Don't go away.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Stein. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel. Why not take us home with you by visiting the GB News shop at gbnews.store. You'll find all the official merchandise, a really good present actually for yourself, your friends or your family.
We ship across the UK mainland at no extra cost. GB News, the People's Channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. We're going to be here for you, our GB News family, to keep you up to date, but also make you smile.
The guy went from puberty to adultery.
And I can't wait to bring a few of my own opinions.
I have no time for cultural totalitarianism.
We'll engage in passionate, but always polite debate, with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. The Metro now, and John Bishop has joked about killing his wife with a spoon and keeping her decapitated head in the fridge, but he thinks that other people shouldn't be allowed to make such jokes, Kiri.
Celebrities including John Bishop and Dan Walker take stand against Jeremy Clarkson following hateful Meghan Markle column. So this is the comment. I didn't catch the full comment here, but about throwing excrement at Meghan Markle.
He said it was a Game of Thrones reference. So he wanted, Jeremy Clarkson joked about hating Meghan Markle so much he wanted her to parade through every town in the UK naked, having excrement thrown at her. So it was an obvious Game of Thrones reference. It was an obvious, not serious thing as well. He wasn't proposing it as an actual official government policy.
OK, but I think we should say very clearly that it is wrong to throw excrement at women.
Especially when they're naked.
Do we agree that?
Yeah, I think we do, mate. I think I'd go along with that.
Well, I feel like we've got to provide balance here. I think, you know, maybe if you're an orangutan in a zoo, it's OK to poo in your hand and throw it.
Yeah, exactly.
But I was surprised at John Bishop coming out and, you know, a comedian criticising someone else for making a joke. I think that's a dangerous... Here's the tweet here. He says, WTF is this? 2 exclamation marks, because he's very angry. I don't care who you are or who you work for. You simply cannot write things like this. It is a blatant appeal to incite humiliation and violence on a woman. Some have excused it as dark humour. There is no joke here, Jeremy Clarkson, and no excuse. I think he means no joke when he says more.
It's just a tweet, though, isn't it? He's just saying an opinion in a tweet. I don't agree with him on this one, but I like the guy.
Someone wants to open for John on his next door, don't they, Kerry?
He's a lovely man and he's very funny.
Come on, Francis, you're not afraid to burn some bridges.
Yeah, I've burned every bridge in the comedy industry, mate, and that's just my set. Now, so here's what... Look, I really dislike it when I see comedians going out and criticising with people who make jokes. Here's the thing. Look, Jeremy Clarkson has written what he's written. Yeah. But he should have the right to write it. He has the right to say it. He's got the right to write it. People have got the right to criticise it. But when people start saying you shouldn't be allowed to say that, I really take umbrage to it. You're allowed to say it's disgusting, you're allowed to say it's morally reprehensible, you're allowed to say it's misogynistic, and you may have a point, but that's not the relevant part.
Yeah, most jokes are all those things. Yeah. Most good jokes are all those things. And for John Bishop, the hypocrisy of John Bishop to say, oh, that's tasteless, that's misogynistic. You literally joked about killing your wife with a spoon. That's a disgusting... If we're to take that at literal face value, as he is with Jeremy Clarkson...
And I'll defend bad jokes as well. And Jeremy Clarkson, he's not particularly subtle with his humour.
Exactly.
And I don't think he was being literal there. And anyway, throwing excrement at Meghan Markle would be a terrible thing to do because she'd get another show out of that.
Finally, something interesting for our documentary.
Something actually happening,
Yeah, so, look, it's not to my taste, I'll be honest with you. I didn't find it particularly funny, but he absolutely has a right to say to it. People have the right to criticise. I don't like it when people are demanding that he shouldn't be allowed to write that. Yeah. He should be allowed to write that. That's why we have freedom of speech. He should be allowed to say it. Yeah. And we should all be allowed to criticise it or agree with it.
I thought it was funny. I thought it was dead funny. And I think Jeremy Clarkson is really funny. And John Bishop is an idiot who's creating a structure, creating a rod for his own back there by saying it's hate speech. Anyway, The Sun reports on plans to fine Netflix up to £250,000 for every lie told in Harry and Meghan's documentary, which could probably fix the deficit in a week.
Yeah, absolutely. So Rishi is planning to take on Netflix with plans to regulate streaming services after fury at Harry and Meghan documentary lies. So this is all about Rishi, and he wants to bring back plans to give the television watchdog Ofcom the power to fine streaming services for breaking strict broadcasting rules. And so because Netflix is being accused of misleading viewers in Harry and Meghan, And there have been lots of occasions where in the documentary, I haven't watched it, I've got a life, I don't care, but apparently they
have a life. Stop lying.
No,
we'll get sued. £250,000 for that lie, Francis.
Yeah, that is true. We're going to get sued by Ofcom.
Admit you love it.
No,
admit you watched every minute of it. Tell the truth.
Mate, this is taking me back to school. No, I don't care.
Denial was painful, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't care. Apart from I find her very sexually attractive. But apart from that, no. But look, again, this is something else I'm utterly uncomfortable with. I do not want Ofcom getting involved and suing Netflix or anybody else.
But surely, Kerry, I mean, it's creating a level playing field. I mean, GB News, the BBC, ITV, they're all subject to Ofcom rules. We can be fined, if we say something that's misleading or inaccurate.
Sure. I don't assume that most of what's on Netflix has any accuracy to it whatsoever. It's not really where I go for my facts. At the same time, though, I'm not against more stringent rules when we're talking about standards of investigative journalism. And if it's claiming to be fact, if it's claiming that this is giving us something that's been that they've thoroughly looked into and investigated, then I do want it to be correct and not use pictures that come from a Harry Potter movie as part of their thing. At the same time, the whole thing's a circus. I mean, we all know. Do we all know that she's a narcissist? And but at the same time, the public and the media love narcissists. We feed them. We're doing it right now.
It's a pretty boring circus, though. Anyway, the deal now, and if my memory serves me correctly, a few months ago, a Canadian trans teacher made a boob of herself by scaring the kids with enormous size Z prosthetic breasts. The school board did their bust to provide support, but on the other hand, she's had some knockers.
That was so painful.
As the kids say, it made them feel norkward.
That hurt. That was really, really, really bad. We've dropped to a new low.
You've stayed abreast of the situation.
No. So it was the trans-Canadian high school teacher. By trans-Canadian, it means that she thinks she's Canadian. And she went to... It's not even much of a story, really. She went to... a children's dance recital, and she's got was it Z-cup breasts?
Yeah.
Whatever that is.
Massive.
Massive, yeah. And she was seen coming into the room through the door for about a whole minute before she fully arrived in the room. Something's coming in, what is that? And this is a man who transitioned to several women at the same time, and then proceeded to sit down at the front of this show, which was pretty good for a children's dance show, because if one of them falls off the stage, they've got a good soft landing. So I think that was very considerate.
The best bit about this entire story is that she is a woodwork teacher.
Yeah.
And she has got huge prosthetic breasts and then uses like hacksaws and drills.
You think there's a risk of the prosthetic nipple getting dragged into the lathe?
No, exactly.
She's proving what's possible.
Exactly.
It's very good.
That is what happens when you allow strong, powerful women to take control, mate.
But there is a theory. There is a theory that's got quite a lot of evidence. Is that this is a man who was he was sick of all the woke rules in school, so he thought, I'm just going to maliciously comply with these woke rules. I'm going to transition. I'm going to get enormous, ridiculous prosthetic breasts. I'm going to make it into the absolute clown show.
I don't know what's true anymore. Someone tweeted that said they were in the class, and that's what was going on. But we don't know which one it is anymore, do we?
Yeah.
If it is, great.
And now the school board are standing right behind him/her.
And quite a way back.
Well, they can't stand in front. Anyway, the Telegraph now, and writers are leaving the Society of Authors Union because it's not sticking up for them, and they're joining the Free Speech Union instead, Francis.
Yes, so this is from the Telegraph, and writers join rival union that aims to defend free speech after trans row. So what is happening here is the Society of Authors have become very, very, very woke, and the reality is that publishing, like a lot of industries, but particularly industries which have a liberal bent, have become more woke than others, and this is particularly bad for authors, particularly female authors who are gender critical. And for those who don't know what gender critical means, it believes that women exist, right? So, and they don't like it And J.K. Rowling has become this hate figure, even though she hasn't actually said anything that's transphobic or done anything that's transphobic. But it doesn't matter, because she is transphobic because everyone says she's transphobic. And they are a lot of these authors are going to the Free Speech Union, which has been set up by Toby Young, which is a brilliant organisation which has been designed to protect free speech in this country. And it's really important, because if we don't have free speech in the arts, if we don't have free speech in publishing, then society is going to be very much the poorer.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I don't have really strong feelings on the whole trans things, except the ideology itself. You know, it's mainly what's been changing in society, coming from the kind of the Frankfurt School of critical theory, that's allowed for an emotional understanding of everything, to override facts and anything that makes sense. But I still think all sides should be allowed to say their point. And writing has been the one area of free speech that has really been the most protected so far. And that's changing now. And I kind of worry a little bit about the Free Speech Union, because whilst I see why it's happening, I kind of feel that what should be happening is more of an attempt to change the main union, the Society of Authors, so that it does what it's supposed to do, is create a world where writers can say their opinions.
Well, yeah, previous president of the Society of Authors, it might have been Philip Pullman, I'm not totally sure, but he was lambasted for sticking up for a teacher who'd written a book that people complained it was racist because she described her pupil. She was talking, in very glowing terms, loving terms about pupils she taught. She described one as having beautiful almond eyes, and they said that's racist. That's like Benny Hill, doing the schoolyard thing. And obviously wasn't intended to be racist, but and he had to step down, I believe.
Why is that racist?
Because you're describing somebody's facial features.
Really?
Man,
you can't mention a facial feature?
You can't mention anything without...
I think when you couldn't say almond eyes were beautiful, you can say they've got ugly almond eyes, that's all right.
Yeah.
OK, we're in the world where everything's been bizarre for a while, hasn't it?
Yeah.
It has been bizarre for a while, but publishing, like I said before, has become very, very liberal. It has become very intolerant. And look, I agree with you, Kerry. I think that the best thing to do would be for the people to try and change the society of authors and make it more tolerant. But the reality is, you're asking a lot of people to put their jobs and careers on the line. And unfortunately, a lot of people, particularly a lot of writers, don't have J.K. Rowling's wealth.
Right.
Unfortunately.
Yep.
In fact, none of them. Anyway, that's all for this section. Join us after the break in our final section, where we'll discuss Steven Spielberg's ocean propaganda, some more bizarre advice, this time about greenhouses, and as we approach Christmas, a nativity play gone wrong. See you in a couple of minutes.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh,
She's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to your final section of headliners. The Daily Mail now, and Steven Spielberg regrets the impact of his anti-shark propaganda, Francis.
Yes, so this is a story from about Steven Spielberg. Triple Oscar winner Steven Spielberg says he regrets the impact his legendary film had on the boom in shark hunting. And this is a quote from him. "That's one of the things I still fear, not to get eaten by a shark, but that sharks are somehow mad at me for the feeding frenzy of crazy sports fishermen that happened after 1975. So everybody was so traumatised by Jaws, Leo, that they went out in order to hunt sharks, and it decimated the shark population.
Yeah, and I should point out, if John Bishop is watching or has read Steven Spielberg's comment, I think he's joking a little bit there.
Yeah.
He's not actually worried that sharks have got it in for him.
I can't. I didn't see the interview, but I can't believe that. I mean, the catchphrase for the show was "never go in the water again," which all of these things with films. You know, the one for what was the space one with in space no one can hear you scream.
Alien.
Was that Alien?
Yeah, that is Alien.
And it's true that no one can hear you scream in space. If you're going to scream in space, you should do this. Make it obvious.
Yeah,
you know, so people can read it. I don't know whether he was joking or whether it's his ego that he thinks that shark fishing happened because of him, and as a result of him, people have been hunting ghosts, ETs, and Jews. But I kind of don't believe the film had that full of... Maybe it did, and maybe he should then make a film about hunting spiders and we'd all be grateful.
He did, Arachnophobia, I think.
Oh, he did, of course.
No, he was executive producer
was that him?
for that.
Yeah.
He wasn't director, but yeah, I remember Arachnophobia. That was a great movie.
Yeah.
That was absolutely brilliant. So yeah,
But what did he do for spiders, though?
Yeah, exactly.
Have they regretted it?
I don't think they're as endangered as some sharks. Anyway, Monday's Guardian now, and Harry and Meghan's documentary isn't the only far-fetched fairy tale making headlines, Kerry.
I'm on a different story here. Where are you?
17.
17 is about Cinderella?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
OK.
Yeah.
I was looking for a
There's a
Meghan
fairy
Markle
tale.
thing. OK. What a mess. Anyway, back to the news. Do you think Cinderella's a fairy tale? Well, you're an idiot, because it's not. Because it turns out the fabled glass slipper is revealed as a joke on royalty. So that's... I'll read this bit. It says, an academic has traced its 17th century origins and uncovered a connection to the creation of the Hall of Mirrors at the Palace of Versailles and the impractical fashions and fads of French aristocrats. So this is really useful if you're doing a pub quiz at some point. Otherwise, what a slow news day we're having. So there's a profound, deeper meaning, as there is with all these things.
Yeah, but they did have... I mean,
we've been enjoying Cinderella wrongly.
The Palace of Versailles and the people, you know, with the men who dressed up with all the lipstick and the rouge and the wigs and stuff. Apparently there's a trend for a real feminisation of men before society collapses. Don't know if it's got any parallels with modern times. But Francis, what's your take on this? Have you got one?
No, not really.
Good.
Let's move on.
The nature of princesses has changed anyway. Who wants to be a princess anymore? So to hell with the fairy tales.
The Telegraph now, and a safety warning about the hidden dangers of greenhouses.
Oh, absolutely. And this is one that is going to reverberate around the world, mate. The National Allotment Society have said, beware of glass greenhouses, gardeners told in utterly bizarre guidance. So they say that glass houses are a negative feature on plots, and they said that they're dangerous and they need to be replaced. And you just think, you know, the National Allotment Society, does anyone care what the National Allotment Society says or thinks?
I read their daily newspaper.
Do you? You read the pamphlet, do you?
OK, I don't even know if they have one, to be honest.
Right, but
it's not printed on glass.
Yeah. But it's saying that, you know, that the glass, you know, it breaks, it shatters.
It does.
It goes into the soil.
It's dangerous.
Yeah,
you know
it goes.
What glass is?
Yeah. And then people cut themselves. And really, it would be much better if we used a kind of tough, transparent plastic material.
We should.
Exactly.
People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones or bricks or anything. And in fact, they shouldn't even be in glass houses. It's ridiculous. Get out of glass houses.
Live in a real house.
So, yes, let's make the world absolutely safe.
Yeah. Anyway, it's not Christmas without the Great Escape and some camels did exactly that. He did a daring escape in Australia, Kerry. With
3,
Metro.
not 2 camels have escaped from a nativity play, which is the last thing you expect. The trees also got away. And who uses real camels in a nativity play? What's going on here?
That's two kids with a bit of carpet over them. This is real. We've got footage of it right here.
Have we?
Yeah. That is not a pantomime camel. That is a genuine camel.
I wonder how many people drove past and thought, oh, nativity play escapees. Clearly.
Do you know what?
It's in Brisbane, is it? But
this is a private school, mate. It wouldn't be at a state school. They can afford these kind of things. For state school kids, we just had to make do with a little bit of carpet cut out in the shape of a camel.
Oh, we had a really cheap nativity play. We had to just hold Jesus against the cross and hope for the best. I was in the nativity play when I was a kid, and I got promoted from a tree to the innkeeper.
Wow, that's a speaking role.
I've been holding that for a long time.
Have you?
I
was a sheep.
Yeah.
You're a double threat. You can be a plant and an innkeeper. Anyway, that's all we have time for, unfortunately. Thank you loads to my brilliant, funny guests, Kerry Marks and Francis Foster. If you want to see me and Francis Foster live, we're going to be coming to Stafford and Leicester performing our stand-up comedy shows on the 20th and 21st. Little plug there for our shows. Please buy tickets. We desperately need them. And the headliners will be back tomorrow at 11 p.m. with Simon Evans, Josh Howie and Nick Dixon. Good night.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by 2 of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late-night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debates, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us